Today's shir is Le'ela Nishmas Chaya Bas Daniel, the mother of Yosef Jesner. Le'ela Nishmas Chaya Bas Daniel. He's doing the mitzvah of Kibudei Machameh Esrim. He's honoring his mother by dedicating the shir to his mom. You can do the mitzvah of honoring your parents even after death by dedicating a shir. It's also Leila Nishmas Dov ben Chaim Pesach, Avram Mordechai David, Reuven ben Shmuel, Shana bas Elchanan, Yeshua ben Shmuel, Chana Golda bas Yisrael, Chaim ben Fega, Yaakov ben Yitzchak, Mordechai Netzach ben Rivka, Rochel bas Yosef, Eliezer ben Yaakov, Chaim ben Gedalia, Zamalei ben Moshe, Leila Nishmatam. Today's shir the name is, why didn't Mashiach come after Nes Purim? All the Jews became Haredi. So you would expect Mashiach to come. Kimu v'kibul Yehudin was a new Kabbalah Satorah after Purim. Unlike the first time the Jewish people were forced, shotgun wedding. This time we accepted Torah b'hava b'simcha, and yet everybody came through, Mashiach didn't come. So we're going to talk about that. But before that, in Jerusalem, Purim is what? Friday. That makes it very hectic. The Shechina says, Keshachal Purim b'yom shishi. Normally you have your meal late in the day. First you do the other mitzvahs of the day, right? Because if you have your meal early, you get too shikha to do the other mitzvahs. So you leave saving the best for last, manja at the end of the day. But the Ramah Paskin, Shulchan Aruch, Hilchos Megillah, Keshachal Purim b'yom shishi, when Purim falls on Friday, Yasa Hasuda b'shachrit. Unlike having the meal late in the day, Friday, Purim, you have to have the meal b'shachrit. Mazeh b'shachrit? Baboker. Mishim kavod Shabbos, says the Ramah. Because if you have your meal late in the day, you're full. When it comes to Friday night, you can't enjoy the gefilte fish and the chopped liver. It's not kavod Shabbos. So the Ramah Paskins in Simon Tov Reish Tzadik Hey, when Purim falls on Yom Shishi, Yasa Hasuda b'shachrit, as Avraham said, shachrit means before 12 o'clock, in order that you should enter Shabbos what? With an appetite, otherwise it's not covered Shabbos. Speaking about Purim, will Purim be the only festival when Mashiach comes? There's a strange Medrash Mishlei that says, Sha'af pi Shakol me'adim b'telim, Yemei Purim lo yevatlu. That even if all the Chagim get canceled, Purim will not get canceled. This is a very strange Medrash Mishlei, because one of the Ani Mamins is that the Torah that we have, Dr. Hackett, will never change. So how could the Medrash Mishlei say that all the Miyadim will become canceled except Purim? What's so special about Purim? One of the other Chagim chopped liver. And we know this seems to contradict you, the Ani Mamin, Muna Shalema, that the Torah that we have will what? Will never change. So we have to understand that the Talmud consists of Haggadah and Halacha. The Ramban, when he debated Pablo Cristiani in what year, 1267? The famous debate that he had, he pointed out that only the halachic part of the Talmud must be taken literally. The Haggadah part, as it says here, that all the Miyadim will be canceled, that's not to be taken literally, Rabbi Yosef. Don't get scared. When Mashiach comes, we'll still celebrate Sukkot and Yom Kippur and Chanukah and Pesach. But what does it mean that all the Chagim will be canceled except Purim? What does it mean? It's not to be taken literally, Yehuda, because it's not halacha. It's only Haggadah. And Nachmanides told us already that the Haggadic part of the Talmud, Rachmiel, is not allowed to be taken literally. So Rabbi Yosef, later Nishmas, your mother, Chaya Bas Daniel, what does this strange medrash mean? So my humble opinion means as follows. If you think about it, all of the Chagim that we have, we'll analyze them, are contained in Purim. And I'll explain what I mean by that. Now, what's the first of the Chagim on the calendar? Pesach. Pesach, Nisan, first month. Nisan, we celebrate Pesach Cherut. Freedom, freedom, freedom from slavery. Well, Rabbi Yosef, Purim, we celebrate a greater freedom. Freedom from death. Pesach is Cherut from slavery. Purim is freedom from death. Isn't that greater than freedom from slavery? Slave is still alive. So you have an aspect of Pesach where? In Purim. What's the next Chag? Shavuot, Matan Torah. What happened of Yosef on Purim? Kimu v'kiblu Yehudim. The Jews accepted the Torah again after the Nes Purim. So it's like Chag Matan Torah. Right? What's the next Chag? Sukkot. Don't rush me. What comes after Shavuot? Oh, thank you. Rosh Hashanah. Okay. On Rosh Hashanah, there's the judgment day. Who will live and who will die? Weren't we all judged on Purim? Who will live and who will die? Haman had the key. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave him the key, so to speak, to who will live and who will die. That's Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. It was judgment day. And God judged us, what? That we will live. So you have an aspect of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur also, what? In Purim.
Also Yom Kippur,
Yom Kippur, Yom Kippurim. Yom Kippur, Yom Kippurim, a day like Purim. Right? Kippurim. The Ariya Kodesh explains that on Yom Kippur we get kapara ben Adam HaMakoim, but not ben Adam HaChavero. The Mishnah says in Yom Kippur only atones for sins between man and God. Between man and man, Yom Kippur does not atone. Which day atones for sins between man and man? Which day? Purim. So you have an aspect of Yom Kippur in Purim. Shloach Manot, through the Suda, Matanat Yonim, you're getting, kapara ben Adam l'chavero. And what's the next Chag? Sukkot. Sukkot is divine shelter. Right? We sit under the sukkah, under the starry night. That represents God's divine shelter. Weren't we sheltered by Him on Purim from Haman's evil decree? So I think that's what the Medrash means. In the Hanukkah, the great victory from what? Also from death, right? From the Greeks. Here it was the Persians, there was the Greeks. So you see, all Chagim can be what? Summarized in Purim. Perhaps that's what the Medrash means, that Purim will be the only Chag. Not to be taken literally, but it means that an aspect of all the other Chagim are contained in Purim. So we said Purim was day Chag Matan Torah, like Shavuos, Kimu v'kiblu Yehudim. The Jews accepted the Torah again. The Gemara in Shabbos tells us that after the Nes Purim there was a new Kabbalah Torah, and that's one reason you have a Suda on Purim. If you look at Kabbalah Torah and Parshas Mishpatim, when the Jews got the Torah and Parshas Mishpatim, it says Vayochlu Vayishtu. They ate and they drank to celebrate Kabbalah Torah. Says the Ramban, that's why on Purim we have a Suda to celebrate the new Kabbalah Torah. Just like in Exodus 24, Yehuda, it says Vayochlu Vayishtu to celebrate Kabbalah Torah. The Jews made a Suda. So you have a new Kabbalah Torah when? On Purim, the Jews accept Torah again. That's another reason why you have to have what? A Suda on Purim to celebrate the new Kabbalah Torah. The first time was a shotgun wedding. But the second time we accepted it willingly, be'ahava, b'ratzon. Torah Shabbat Peh, Kimu v'kiblu Yehudim, right? Mashe kiblu kavar. Rashi says, b'havas hanes, b'simcha. Unlike the first time we were forced. So we spoke about that what? Yom Kippurim, the Zohar says that Purim is a day, Yom Kippurim, a day like Purim. Yom Kippur is Yom Kippurim, a day like Purim. So the Ariya Kodesh says something amazing. He says, the Talmud tells us, Ein Kiddush el Mokam Suda. Ein Kiddush el Mokam Suda. And what does that mean halachically? That when you make Kiddush on Shabbos, you're not yotze the Kiddush unless you want to have a meal. Right? You have to have at least a cookie, a cake, to be Kovei Suda, otherwise the Kiddush doesn't count. But the Ariya Kodesh gives it a Kabbalistic meaning. Ein Kiddush el Mokam Suda. Doesn't just refer to Kiddush on Shabbat. He says all aspects of life, says the Ari. If you want to gauge one's Kedusha, it's not how a person behaves on Yom Kippur. Because on Yom Kippur, you're fasting, you're hungry, you're tired, you don't feel like sinning, you have no koyach to sin anyway. Who'd want to sin with you? You don't smell so good. What's it called? Morning breath. All day long. But where is the true test of Kedusha, says the Ari? B'mokam Suda. When a person engages in the Suda, and he lets it all go, and he still remains a loyal Jew, ain't Kedusha Lokam Suda. To gauge a person's Kedusha, it's how he behaves, not on Yom Kippur, when he's fasting. It's dafke when he behaves, Chava, in a lavish meal. And he remembers he's a Jew. That's how you measure a person's Kedusha. So therefore, Yom Kippurim, a day like Purim. So that's another reason why you have Sudan Purim, to celebrate the new Kabbalah Satorah. Now the Zohar goes to town on this, comparing Yom Kippur to what? To Purim. On Yom Kippur, the Kohen Gadol is fasting, wearing special clothes, going to the inner sanctum to plead for the life of his people. Esther, fasting, wearing special clothes, going into the inner sanctum, at the risk to her life, to plead for her people. The Zohar points out the fasting Queen Esther, dressed in special garments, entering the king's inner chamber at the risk of her life, to save her people, and you have the Kohen Gadol, wearing special white clothes, entering the normally off-limits Kodesh HaKadoshim, at the risk to his life in order to plead for the people of Israel. So you have Esther and the Kohen Gadol, both in their unique roles. Esther on Purim, the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippurim. Amazing parallels between what? Yom Kippurim and Purim. And the name Purim means lottery. Yom Kippur, the main service of the day was the lottery, which soyer goes Lashem and which soyer goes Lazazel. And Haman threw lots which day to kill the Jewish people, which month. And it came up on Adar, and he was very happy. Why was he happy? Because he knew that Moshe Rabbeinu what? Died in Adar. But he didn't know that Moshe Rabbeinu was also born in Adar. Rabbi Yosef, what do you mean he didn't know? Why didn't he check Google?
Because it wouldn't
Google tell him Moshe Rabbeinu was also born in Adar? Haman was not stupid. What does the Gemara mean he didn't know that Moshe Rabbeinu was also born in Adar? Haman was very shrewd. When Moshe died, he was very happy because Moshe represents supernatural miracles. Kriyas Yamsuf, Man, all the Makot, everything supernatural. So Moshe died, that's the end of what? Of miracles, Haman felt. But he didn't know that Moshe was also born in the month of Adar. Moshe's birth and the way he was saved, was that supernatural? Yes. No! It was very nice. His mother put him in a basket, right? And he floated down the river. Who happened to go take a shower at that time? Bat Paro, she couldn't take a shower earlier before, saw the little basket, adopted him. He grew up as a prince of Egypt in the very home of the king that wanted to destroy him. Doesn't that parallel Esther? She happened to win the beauty contest, and she was a queen in the palace of the very king that wanted to destroy her. But it all looked like Derech HaTeva. Baspara happened to find him. He happened to grow up as prince of Egypt in the very home of the king that wanted to destroy his people. Parallel, Esther happened to win the beauty contest. She was the prettiest Bes Yaakov girl. There weren't prettier girls. She won the beauty contest, and she became the queen in the palace of the very king who wanted to destroy her people. So that Haman didn't realize that there's such a thing as Nes Nistar. There's hidden miracles as well. Even though God's name is not in the Megillah, there's no more splitting of the Red Sea, no more man. But whatever happens to you in life, it's all God. We're all writing our own Megillahs, whether we know it or not. Each one of us. But we have to connect the dots. Esther couldn't figure it out. Why she won the beauty contest, had to marry, assimilation, intermarriage, only 9 years later. The Megillah plays out over 9 years, not 45 minutes, we read it. 9 years later, why did I have to marry a guy? I'm the instrument of God saving the Jewish people. But she couldn't see it right away. You have to connect the dots of all our own Megillah. You'll say, we're writing a Megillah, whether we know it or not, why this happened and that happened. There's a reason for everything.
Also, you like to think there's no other holidays in Adar, right? That was part of it.
Right, there's no other holidays in Adar. Thanks to Haman, we have a big holiday, right?
Best holiday of the year.
Right? And that's why we name a cookie after Haman. You wouldn't call a Danish Arafat Danish? Or how about the Abu Mamzer cupcake? Hamantash. Avram, very strange, no? So the Gemara Megillah says Haman did more for the Tshuva movement than Chabad and NCSY and all the 48 Nevi'im in Tanakh. Because they all tried to stop the Jewish assimilation. The Jews in Babylon, Long Island, and Persia were assimilating. And they didn't listen to the Nevi'im. Comes along Haman with the final solution, and all the Yidden become what? Haredi. So the question is, if that's the case, why didn't Mashiach come? So Chabad says, because the Rebbe was not born yet. But if they all became Haredi, why didn't Mashiach come? So that's the question.
Because they didn't go back to Israel.
Why is Hashem's name not in the Megillah? Why is Hashem's name not in the Megillah? Rabbi Yosef told me last week, you told me, because the Ness happened through the sin of intermarriage. That's what you said.
I said because of
That's what you said.
Esther married.
The Talmida Yoita Mikulam, Yosef. You said because the miracle happened through the sin of Ezechil Hashem, the Jews knew that their Beis Yaakov girl Esther married a goy. Isn't that a Chil Hashem? It's a Chil Hashem, the word Chilel from the word, the English word Chilel. Halal. Halal, Chilel, hallow. Hashem's name is hallowed out. So Rav Yosef, thanks to your Chidush, because it was a Chil Hashem that she had to marry a goy, intermarriage, one of the worst sins. Had to be this way. We'll see why it had to be this way. So perhaps that's why God's name is what? Not mentioned in the Megillah. God says, I'm out of here. The Ness had happened through a Chil Hashem. My name is hollow, hollowed out. But now, why did the Hatzalah of Purim have to be done through a Chil Hashem? That just begs the question, Yehuda. Couldn't God figure out another way to save the Jewish people? Why dafka to this terrible Chil Hashem of Esther marrying a goy? And everybody knew about it. It was in the Jewish press.
Yeah, but they were all doing it, so they couldn't really speak up to her.
Yeah, but Esther was Haredi. She was married to Mordechai. Mordechai was the chief of the Sanhedrin. If she can intermarry, why can't we assimilate?
But they were.
Okay, but they had a role model. The Haredi Esther, the terrible Chil Hashem.
Maybe she was a reflection of them.
But why did the Hatzalah of Purim have to go through this Chil Hashem? Why?
Somebody had to be royalty in order to do it, no?
But couldn't God figure out another plan where his name would not be desecrated to save the Jewish people? If you look in Yecheskel Lamed Vav, Yecheskel Lamed Vav says, Vayovay el hagoyim asher bo'u sham. The Jews came among the Goyim and they remained there. Vechalu Hashem Kodshi. The very fact that the Jews lived among Goyim, that's Vaychalu Hashem Kodshi. They desecrated my holy name. Be'amar lahem, when the Goyim said to them, Am Hashem Eile, you are the people of God. Uma'artze yotzu. What are you doing here in Lakewood? I mean in Crown Heights. Yecheskel Lamed Vav. The very fact that Yidden live in Shmutz La'aretz is a terrible Chil Hashem. So God says, L'shem Kodshi asher chilaltem bagoyim. Again God says in Ezekiel 36, My holy name you profaned among the Goyim asher ba'atem sham. Because you came among the Goyim and don't come back to Israel, Chil Hashem. So I want to say, Aveira goreret Aveira.
Yeah.
One Chil Hashem leads to another Chil Hashem. Aveira goreret Aveira. We forget that Koresh, Achashverosh succeeded Koresh on the throne. Who was the king before Chava? Koresh. Look in the book of Ezra. 50 years before Purim, Koresh already proclaimed the Jewish people should go back to Pisgat Zev. to Kiryat Moshe. But only 42,000 came up.
Koresh is who?
Cyrus Vance. Remember Cyrus? 50 years before the Purim miracle. Look at the book of Ezra. Only 42,000 Yidden came. Millions remained behind in Babylon, Long Island, and in Persia. They just didn't get it. So therefore, God had to send a Haman to what? Hello, wake up and do tshuva. Wake up and do tshuva.
But they still stayed.
And they still stayed. So because it's terrible Chil Hashem, Ezekiel 36, the Jews had this nevuah already. Ezekiel 36, he lived before Mordechai. He said, Yidden, you're making a Chil Hashem. So one Chil Hashem leads to another. So Esther had to marry a goy to save the Jewish people. One sin leads to another. Because the Jews didn't get it. They were in denial. Even though they lived in Persia, not in Cairo, they were in denial. Get it? So now, they all became frum, and yet Mashiach didn't come. They didn't go back, but they all became Haredi. Had Chabad houses and Crown Heights, kosher pizza shops and koilos in Borough Park.
But they weren't doing.
But they're all frum. Why didn't the Mashiach come? Why? The Rebbe wasn't born yet. That's what Chabad said, not a joke.
It's not a joke?
It's not a joke. But what's the real reason? Take a look at your sheets and fasten your seat belts. If you don't fasten your seat belts, you look at this sheet, you'll fall off your chair. This is, I wouldn't dare say this, you'll say, but it's Tractate Yuma. Remember Johnny Yuma? Tractate Yuma 9b. Rish Lakish on the left side, you have that? Was once swimming in the Jordan River. Osa Rabbi Bar Bachana. Rabbi Bar Bachana was the chief rabbi of Babylon, Long Island. Came and noticed him starting to leave the water. Chief rabbi of Tiberias. Thereupon, Yehav Le Yoda, he gave him his hand to assist him. To assist whom? Rish Lakish, to come, great rabbi, I'll help you out of the water. Amar Le, Rish Lakish said to the chief rabbi of Babylon, Long Island, Eloha Shanan Elocha. God hates you, Babylonians. Say what? God hates you, Babylonians. 5 towns? God hates you, Babylonians. That's how you speak to a chief rabbi of Babylon, Long Island. Wants to do him a favor, help him out of the water. What do you mean God hates you, Babylonians? Footnote 30. What? What does that mean? God hates you, Babylonians, because you did not ascend to Pisgat Zev in the days of Ezra. And therefore you prevented the divine presence from returning and resting in the second temple. What does that mean? Footnote 38. See footnote 38? 38. As a direct result, the Shechina did not rest upon the second temple according to the full potential of the time. Next, footnote 38. There's an underline there. You have it, Yudah? Clearly, the second temple was host to some manifestation of the Shechina. Footnote 38, the Gemara says in Zvachim that God's presence hovered over the second temple as well. However, as our Gemara proceeds to explain, God can make his presence felt more openly or less openly. The failure of the majority of the Yidden to make Aliyah to Eretz Yisrael at the time when Cyrus Vance gave them the permission 50 years before Purim determined that the presence revealed in the second temple would not approach what? The first temple. Now look at the next paragraph and fasten your seatbelts. In the keynote, you see that? It's underlined there in the keynotes. Recited on Tisha B'Av. You have it, Chava? In the keynotes recited on Tisha B'Av, there is a kinnah that mourns the calamities that befell the Rhineland, Worms, Speyer, and Minus during the First Crusades in the year 1096. Worms suffered far more persecution, pogroms, and evil decrees than other congregations in Germany. That community was founded by Jewish exiles who made their way to Germany following the destruction of the First Temple. After the 70 years of exile, many Jews returned from Babylon to Eretz Yisrael and Jerusalem, but not one Jew returned from Germany. Say what? The community in Jerusalem wrote to the community in Worms, Germany, and urged them to what? Join their new settlement in Jerusalem. But the complacent Jews of Germany dismissed this invitation out of hand, and they sent back a message to Ezra. What was the message, Yehuda?
You stay where you are in the great Jerusalem, we will continue to stay where we are in our little...
You stay where you are in the great Jerusalem, we will continue to stay where we are in the little Jerusalem. That's what the Jews said in Deutschland in 1920s. They said Berlin, Evelyn, is the new Jerusalem.
1906, actually.
In 1906, they said Berlin is the new Jerusalem. But they said that in the year 1096, they said it first. Berlin is, and the Meshech Chochmah said that attitude is going to bring a Shoah. This arrogant response was due to the prosperity and prestige the Jews of Worms, Germany enjoyed in the eyes of the local Gentiles. You hear this? The comfort the Jews of Worms experienced in their patch of the exile was ultimately replaced with cruelty and what? Violence and Holocaust. Mamish current events. Mamish current events. The more things changed, the more they stayed the same. The Jews didn't want to make Aliyah, so the community in Germany suffered more than any other community. But that's what the Jews said in the beginning, in the 1900s, in Berlin is the new Jerusalem. The Reformed Jews, that's what they said. We don't need Jerusalem, Berlin is our Jerusalem. And that attitude, Lo Yaleinu, brought the Holocaust. But what's the Gemara saying over here? Go back in the Gemara over here. That if the Jews would have come back under Ezra, the second temple would never have been destroyed. Take a look at the text in the Gemara. The Chsiv, it's written in Shir HaShirim, Im choymehi nivdaleh tiras kosef. If she be a wall, let us build her a silver crown. Vim deleti notzur alel ruach eres. But if she be a door, let us enclose her with a cedar panel. What does it mean? Im asitem atzmachem kachoma. Had you, Israel, made yourself like a wall, v'alitem kulchem b'mei Ezra, and all Jews would have made Aliyah in the days of Ezra after Koresh had allowed them to come back. See footnote 40? Had the Jewish people in time in Ezra ascended to Eretz Yisrael in mass as one united people, then the second temple never would have been destroyed. Back in the text, Nishaltam Bakesev, you will be compared to silver. Shein Rokav Shalaboy, silver never rots. Silver never decays. It remains. Right? See footnote 41, Yehuda, just as silver always remains undiminished because it is not subject to decay, so too the Kedusha, the second temple, would not have been diminished. By the After Shechina, and the second temple never would have been destroyed. The second temple would have been the Mashiach would have come 2,400 years ago. That means no Churban and no Holocaust. Achshav, Shalitem Kedalsai, but now you came back like doors. Remember who did the doors? Look at footnote 42. The analogy is to a gate that has two doors, one open and the other closed. Just as this gate is only partly open, so too when the Jewish people were called to return to Eretz Yisrael, they responded only partially. Nishaltem, back in the text, Yehuda, Nishaltem ke'eres. You are compared to cedar wood, Sharokav Shalaboy, which is subject to what?
Rot.
To rot. Therefore, the second temple was a wooden hut, not a Pizza Hut. It's a wooden hut. Now remember, the second temple could have been the final temple. Ezra had Yecheskel's Nevuah. Yecheskel prophesies about Bayit Shlishi. Why didn't Ezra build it that way? Chava, why? Because he knew that since the Jews were not interested, this second temple from the get-go is going to be destroyed. And Yecheskel's temple is forever. If the Jews would have come back from Babylon, Island to Ezra, Yecheskel's temple would have been the second temple. There would be no need for a third temple. But since they didn't come back, so therefore Ezra had no choice but to build a miskin, a wooden hut, and not Yecheskel's plan, which he already had. If you look in the book of Ezra, Ezra knew the temple was going to be destroyed. Because when the temple was already built, you look in the book of Ezra, Eze cherpa v'busha, this in English, cherpa v'busha. Shanda. There wasn't enough Kohanim and Levites in Pisgat Zev to run the temple. In Kiryat Moshe. Ezra had to go back to Borough Park, Babylon, Long Island, and put an ad in the Jewish press. Kohanim and Levites wanted to run the Beis HaMikdash. Eze cherpa busha. So Ezra knew right then and there that the second temple is going to be what? Destroyed. Because the Jews were not interested. Mashiach could have come 2,400 years ago. That means no Shoah. But they refused to come. So the second temple had to be destroyed, and now we're waiting for Bayis Shlishi. But Yecheskel's Bayis Shlishi, Rabbi Yaakov, could have been the Bayis Sheni. Plan A and Plan B, it's up to us. You see the parallels to today? The Jews in Poland, they say, gee, maybe we don't belong in Poland. Gee whiz.
It's interesting, I just read something regarding the New Jerusalem. They call these places New Jerusalem.
New Jerusalem?
Right. It's a Christian term.
Uh-huh.
It's not a Jewish term, it's a Christian term, but the Jews took it.
The Jews took it.
The Jews have taken it.
You look in the Meshech Chochmah, Rabbi Yosef, Meir Simcha Cohen, who died in 1926. Or Sameach is named after him. He wrote the Meshech Chochmah in 1902 or 1904. In Pashup Chikotai, he said, in those days, the early 1900s, the Jews of Berlin said exactly what they told Ezra. We don't need to come back. We're not interested. He says that attitude will bring a Shoah on Am Yisrael. In 1902, that attitude, it destroyed Worms, Germany in 1096, when the Jews rejected Eretz Yisrael, and then again during the Holocaust, that attitude, where the Jews rejected and despised Eretz Yisrael, where they think that their Babylon and their Borough Park and their whatever, Poland is the New Jerusalem, Lo Yaleinu, that attitude, that Chil Hashem, led to another Chil Hashem, that Esther had to marry a Goy to save the Jewish people. Aveira goreret Aveira. Now let's read the footnote over here, Yuda. You see that? They had the divine presence in the first and second temple era. You see that footnote? Right underneath 45 on the right side. You have that, Abraham? Right under footnote 45 on the right side. The divine presence in the first and second temple eras. You have that, Chava? During the period of the first temple, the divine presence was manifest among Jews. Holiness and prophecy were everywhere. Because the majority of world Jewry during first temple lived where? Here. One could ascend the Temple Mount and see ongoing miracles. Wonder of wonder, miracles of miracles. The pillar of God's glory, heavenly fire, and others. Remember the Mishnah mentions how many miracles there were, Chava? No matter how heavy it rained, the altar was located outside. No matter how heavy it rained, the fire what? Never went out. How windy it was? It gets pretty windy Hanukkah time. Raining. The smoke went straight up, right?
Weren't there any bugs?
Right? No bugs. The meat never went sour, even though there was no refrigerator. The land could not be destroyed and its people exiled until the Shechina removed itself from the people. The three grievous sins. See the next paragraph, Evelyn? Avodah zarah, gili arat shechas damim, idolatry, immorality, and murder. That is the symbol of impurity. When the people were sullied by those sins, they could no longer be the home of God's presence. So therefore, Nebuchadnezzar, Chava, destroyed an empty shell. The Shechina was long gone. A temple without the divine presence is a hollow shell waiting to be destroyed. The next paragraph, you see that? It's a brackets. You have that in brackets? As a Gemara teaches, the second temple began as a hollow shell. The divine presence did not rest on the land because the Jews were not home. There was no prophecy, no holy ark in the temple, and many of the miracles that occurred regularly in the first temple were lacking because the Jews were what? In Borough Park. in Babylon, and didn't come back. The strength of the nation during that period was that it was united. God could still say, who is like my people Israel, one nation on earth. The temple served as a symbol of their unity because they brought offerings in the same place and the same Kohanim. When they descended to petty bickering and hatred, they forfeited their one claim to divine protection. Unity. Whatever measure of statehood they had was possible only by the grace of Hashem. When they lost the cause of that grace, they lost their land and their temple. And we're still 2,000 years later. The last paragraph, you have that, Chava? The absence of the Shechina rendered the second temple era different than the first. The people and building of both periods may have been outwardly similar, but there existed a dramatic change in historical assumptions of the time and the very concept of human nature. Specifically, the end of prophecy was accompanied by the end of temptation to serve idols. So the first temple, the Jewish people were living here, so the Shechina was open. But then when we committed the three cardinal sins, the Shechina left. In the second temple, when the majority of world Jewry never lived here. Can you imagine, Chava? Throughout the entire second temple period, the majority of world Jewry didn't live in Eretz Yisrael. Did not live in Eretz Yisrael.
And some
Can you imagine that?
Yes, and I can imagine, because I've heard that 10% of Romans were Jews.
Because they intermarried.
10% of whom?
The Romans, the Jews.
Because the Jews intermarried.
No, the Jews
Yes.
lived there.
And they intermarried.
Whether they intermarried or not.
What?
It's 10% of the Romans. People in Rome were Jews.
Now, Pesach is coming up. Rabbi Yosef, I don't want to scare you. Pesach is coming up. A lot of Jews from Babylon, Long Island, and the 5 towns are going to come to celebrate Pesach in Jerusalem. How many days are they going to keep Pesach? They'll keep 2 Seder's, right?
They have to keep 2. We don't.
Some people say, don't confuse me with the facts, my mind's made up. Rabbi Yaakov, hear this, now hear this. Says the great Rav Kook, he doesn't understand these people. During the second temple period, we just said, you look in the book of Ezra, throughout the entire second temple period, the majority of world Jewry didn't live here. They remained in Persia and Bavel. But they came up for Pesach. Would they dream of keeping a second Seder?
Probably not.
They'd put him in the loony hatch, says Rav Kook. Because to keep a second Seder with a korban Pesach is notar. Avram, it's chayev karet. They'd lock him up in a padded cell. You're going to keep a second Seder? Right? It's notar. It's chayev karet to eat the Pesach lamb. The main service of the Seder, we forget, was the Pesach lamb. You're going to keep a second Seder? You're chayev karet. So no one kept a second Seder.
In the land of Israel.
Even though they lived in Bavel. When they came here, they only kept 1 Seder. So Rav Kook says he doesn't understand. People come from the 5 towns of Babylon, Long Island, or Borough Park. How dare they keep a second Seder? They're over Baltoisiv, Leitis Goidedu, making bracha levatolis. But people say, don't confuse me with the facts. My mind is made up. But here the strong point that Rav Kook is making, how could you keep a second Seder?
Who made that up to the first one?
What?
Who made up the second, who made up the...
Outside a different story.
Outside of Eretz Yisrael, they came up with this. But why bring your Golos mentality? Leave your Golos mentality in Galut. Why bring it with you on the suitcase?
Who made up the second Seder?
What? Who?
Why do their rabbanim in Chutz La'aretz tell them to keep two
Because they don't want to lose their customers.
In Chutz La'aretz,
They don't want, the rabbis and schmutzlars don't want to lose their customers. So they want them to keep this Golos mentality.
It's not really Israel.
Right? You listening to me, Chava? It gets even better. Rav Kook has another argument. I tell this to people, they say, don't confuse me, okay? The other argument is the Gemara in the Erevin says that Mashiach cannot come on Yontif. But he can come on Chalamoid. Mashiach cannot come on Yontif or Shabbos. He can't come on Yontif and he can't travel on Yontif. But he can come on Chalamoid. Says Rav Kook, if you're keeping an extra day Yontif, but it's really not, you're stopping Mashiach from coming, Ray. Mashiach wants to come because it's really not Yontif. But you're saying it's Yontif. You're preventing the Mashiach from coming. Ooh, why do you want to do that for? You want that on your shoulders.
So you're saying it's an Avera then?
What?
Right here.
I think it's an Avera. You're baltosing, not allowed to add on to the Torah. And there's lotus go to do, the factionalism. And there's bracha levatala. You're making kiddush the second night when it's not Yontif. Aren't you taking God's name in vain? The Rambam says you make a bracha levatala. One of the 10 Commandments is don't take God's name in vain. So when it's really not Yontif, I'm having a bagel and they're making kiddush. I'm having a holy bagel, and they're making kiddush, right? The 8th day of Pesach, right? Holy bagel, right?
What do they do about Shechina the second night?
They make it.
They
They make a Shechina, even though it's Chalamoid. They make a Shechina. Play it again, Sam. What about bracha levatalis?
Rabbi.
Yes, I heard this from Rav Shalom Gold. Otherwise, I wouldn't repeat this.
Okay, go for it.
He heard it from the guy that asked for Shlomo Zalman Auerbach. Today is the Levaya of his son, Shmuel Auerbach, Zechus Halig Bracha. And Rav Shalom Gold told me this. I wouldn't repeat it. He told me this, that a man lived in Borough Park, and he went to ask Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach. He said, I'm here for Pesach, but I'm going back after Pesach. Do I have to keep a second Seder? So Shlomo Zalman told him, and this man reported to Shalom Gold, but he told him, do I have to keep a second day of Pesach? Second Seder. So Shlomo Zalman told him, you're here for Pesach, and you have a mind that you're going back to Borough Park after Pesach? Where's your Ani Ma'amim B'Emunah Shalema? The Mashiach will come on Chalamoid. How could you think you're going back to Borough Park? Don't you believe Mashiach can come every day on Chalamoid? So how could you keep a second Seder for? Mashiach will come on Chalamoid and you won't go back. Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, very Haredi. This is what he said. Sak halacha was told over to Rav Shalom Gold. This man told him. But some people, again, they have this Golos mentality, right? It's ridiculous. They're living in Eretz Yisrael. They're here. And yet they make believe they're in Shmutz La'aretz. Why bring the tomb of Chutz La'aretz to Eretz Yisrael? Right? Doesn't make any sense, yes?
Rabbi Cook in the Rehovot.
Right.
He's still a rabbi in Rehovot. They had a lot of people who came from Chutzlars because of the Weitzman Institute and things like that.
Right.
And they made a second Seder. And his comment was, it's not enough they live in Golas, they bring the Golas here with them.
That's his uncle, the great Rav Kook. Great uncle.
And so what if you...
Why bring your bad enough, like Yaakov said, that you live in Golas, but when you're in Eretz Yisrael, you have to bring your Golas with you? Now let me give you the clincher of Yosef. You came just to hear this. Now hear this. My great-great-grandfather, B'nai Yissaschar, I'm an anicle of him. He wrote a Kabbalistic book on the Chagim, which has nothing to do with Yissaschar, but he said we come from Shevet Yissaschar. So he calls it B'nai Yissaschar. It's a Kabbalistic work on the Chagim, and he says as follows. Now, he lived in Poland in the 1700s. Super Haredi, right? why do you keep 2 days in Shmutz Loretz? Sveika Diyoma. Right? So when you're in Poland, you have to keep 2 days because Sveika Diyoma. But today there is no Sveika Diyoma. Reb Shalom, we have a calendar. There's no Suffolk. That's why you keep 2 days in Poland. Even in New York. Because Suffolk, which day is Yontif? But we have calendars today. There's no Suffolk. So, Minak Avotenu b'yadeinu. How do you say that in Yiddish? Minak Avosayni b'yadayni.
Continue our father's customs.
But it doesn't make any sense. So he gives a Kabbalistic answer of why you keep 2 days in Chutz La'aretz. He says the word moed. The word moed, ask any Ulpan teacher, means rendezvous.
Means what?
Rendezvous.
Rendezvous.
Oel moed, the tent of rendezvous. How do you say rendezvous? Meeting. So he says, why is the Yom Tovim called moed? Because there's a special rendezvous between God and the Jewish people. More than on regular Wednesday. That means when Moed comes along, there's an extra amount of Kedusha, of the Shechina, that is being poured on the earth. Chutz La'aretz cannot contain that Kedusha. Chutz La'aretz, the Gemara Gittin is called Eretz Tameh. Eretz Am, it's Metame. Even a Kohen can't live in Chutz La'aretz. You know that? It's Metame. You look in the last Sif in Shulchan Aruch, he wonders how a Kohen can live in Borough Park. The land, Chutz La'aretz, is Metame, it's Tameh. How could a Kohen live there? You have to ask the Kahanim in Borough Park. So he says, since it's Eretz Tameh, it can't absorb the Kedusha in 1 day. It's like trying, I like my example, it's like trying to put a 2-pound salami in a 1-pound bag. Will it fit?
No.
So therefore, the Kedusha spills over to the second day. So therefore, you keep 2 days in Borough Park today. There's no Sveika Diyoma. The Kedusha of the Moed, of the rendezvous, cannot be contained in 1 day because it's Eretz Tameh. So he spills over the second day. So he says, if you come to Eretz Yisrael and you keep a second day, what are you implying? I don't want to say it. You're implying that Eretz Yisrael is not holier than Shmutz La'aretz. What do you want to do that for? If you're keeping a second day in Eretz Yisrael, you're saying that Eretz Yisrael has no more Kedusha than Chutz La'aretz. You are slandering God's palace. So you think you're doing a good thing by keeping a second day, said B'nai Yissaschar. The opposite. You're implying that Eretz Yisrael is not holier than what? Than Lakewood or Crown Heights. That's a terrible insult to God's favorite country. You hear what he said? And therefore you should not keep a second day. Nebuch and Chutz La'aretz, you have to keep a second day. 2-pound salami in a 1-pound bag. Would it fit? But when you come to Eretz Yisrael, Baruch Hashem, the Kedusha can be contained in 1 day. If you keep a second day, you're implying that Israel is not holier than what? Than Babylon, Long Island.
So
That's a Chil Hashem, he says.
last year when I was in the United States during Pesach,
Right.
okay, and I was finishing up on the holiday.
Right.
They were going to have the 8th day.
Right.
Okay. I asked the rabbi, when can I eat
Right.
hummus? He said, well, you can't. You have to wait until the
He's right. It doesn't matter where you live, it matters where you are. If I live in Pisgat Zev, but if I'm in Shmutz La'aretz for Yontiv, I have to keep the second day. Because the Kedusha spills over. The Kedusha...
I don't have to do the second Seder.
What? You have to keep all of the mitzvahs. Because you are in Chutz La'aretz. The Kedusha cannot be contained in 1 day. So you have to keep all the mitzvahs, even though you live in Israel. But you're not in Israel. So the Kedusha that's being showered on the Moed cannot be contained in 1 day. So therefore, if you're in Chutz La'aretz during the Chag, you have to keep 2 days. But if you're in Israel in the Chag, you keep only 1 day. Keep in mind the 2-pound salami in a 1-pound bag. So I live in Pisgat Zev, but if I'm in Babylon, Long Island, for the Chag, there's 2 pounds. It's a 1-pound bag in Chutz La'aretz. I have to keep a second day because I'm not in Eretz Yisrael. Depends where you are. So says the Bnei Yissaschar, so says the Chacham Tzvi, so says the Balatanya. When in Rome, do as the Romans.
But they don't do it the other way around.
You-
If they come here,
Yeah,
they do as they do there.
but that's not right.
No, but that's what.
That's not right. That's the whole point of the Chacham Tzvi and the Bnei Yissaschar. The Kedusha in Eretz Yisrael is contained in one day. Doesn't matter where you live, it depends where you are. And the Kedusha in Chutz La'aretz needs 2 days. So even though I live in Israel, but if I'm in Chutz La'aretz, I have to keep the second day because the Kedusha cannot be contained in one day. And I'm there. So I have to keep a second day yontiv in Chutz La'aretz. But when I'm here, it doesn't matter where I live, if I'm here, the Kedusha is contained in one day, and you're not allowed to keep a second day. Wednesday, we have a special program at 3:45. It's called Esther's Dilemma, Salvation Through Sin, Wednesday, 3:45.